What's the latest you know about Freeman Mbowe's condition, as well as the other members of CHADEMA who were arrested? Do you have any idea of what will happen next to them, and how concerned are you for their condition?
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me. The latest information that we have is 5 of those arrested who are being held in the northwest city of Mwanza were traveled overnight yesterday to Dar es Salaam, a distance of 1,200 kilometers. One of them was released this morning. 4 remain in police custody in Dar es Salaam. As regards the other 9 who remained in Mwanza, we hear that 3 have been released. So there are about 6 who are still in police custody. As far as Chairman Mbowe is concerned, since yesterday, the police have prevented his lawyers, they have prevented members of his family, his children in this case, to see him. So we have not seen him. He is not being seen. No one has talked to him. And therefore, we do not know what his condition is. And the police have said nothing about their plans, what they plan to do next. Mm-hmm. So that is as far as the latest updates are.
Tundu, let me ask your opinion when it comes to this issue, because it was just a few months back that President Hassan had reached out to members of the opposition. She had pledged to defend democracy when she took office. Had you been hopeful at that point that things might change, and are you at all hopeful now?
Well, we were the first to make the move. We were the first to extend an olive branch. Immediately after she was sworn in as president, I personally made a call to her. I spoke to her, one of her assistants, telling him to convey my message to her that I hoped that her administration would move away from the toxic legacy of John Pombe Magufuli. Now, my phone call was immediately followed by an official letter from my party in which we requested her to invite us to a meeting in which we'll start a dialogue to move the country away from 5 years of repression. It was after our extension of olive branch, that's when she made that public statement that she would be speaking to the opposition. Now, that was 4 long months ago. In between, she has held meetings with all and sundry, but she has not fulfilled her pledge to speak to the opposition. And now, all we are getting now is more of the same, more of what we got during 5 years of the Magufuli tyranny. And therefore, at this stage, it is difficult to be hopeful that the Samia administration is going to be any different from that of her predecessor. In fact, there is reason to fear that we may be in for even worse repression. Even though President Magufuli was very brutal in his treatment of the opposition, he never dared to charge us with such serious offenses as terrorism. President Samia Suluhu Hassan has started terrorism, and that tells us that we are in for very tough days and weeks ahead.
The CHADEMA party has been calling for constitutional changes like the reduction of presidential power and an independent electoral commission. What else would the opposition like to see? What other kinds of reforms do they want to see happen in Tanzania?
Well, we have been calling for a complete overhaul of our constitutional and legal order in order to give the country a new, better, and democratic constitution. And these calls have been going on for the past 3 decades. It's not just recently. They have been going on since 1991, when a presidential commission recommended that the country needed a new constitution. And therefore, the major issue of the day is just that one, a total overhaul of our constitutional and political order to create a more democratic Tanzania. But immediately, in the short run, we would like to see a restoration of political freedoms that are guaranteed by the current constitution. We want to see an end to the use of criminal law to punish political opponents. We want to see an end to impunity, to the impunity of the security forces, which have killed and tortured and maimed hundreds of people in the past 5 years. We want to see the repeal of very repressive and very draconian legislation that was enacted soon after President Magufuli came to office in 2015. We also want to see an end, a release, unconditional and immediate release of all political prisoners and the cessation of the illegitimate criminal prosecutions that have been going on for far too long against the democratic opposition. So these are the basic demands that we are making.
Tundu, you know, the government has said that there were COVID-19 restrictions that the opposition was in violation of by having this meeting or by planning this meeting, that CHADEMA shouldn't have planned this meeting because of the restrictions imposed about COVID-19. Had members of CHADEMA been warned by the government not to hold the meeting, and was permission needed?
First of all, Mohammed, there are no COVID-19 restrictions in Tanzania, and there have never been since the outbreak of the pandemic. As you may remember, President Magufuli totally refused to have any restrictions on public gatherings, on sports events, on any sort of public gathering because of COVID-19. President Magufuli refused. And the new president and her government have not instituted a single restriction on COVID-19. They have not prohibited any public gatherings. On the day they were breaking the CHADEMA constitutional forum, there was a major sports event in the same city of Mwanza, a Premier League match between a team from the coast in the east and a local team, which was attended not only by thousands of sports fans, it was also attended by very senior government officials in the same city, in the same time as they were cracking down on the CHADEMA event. So there is not a single restriction on COVID-19. There is not a single prohibition of public gatherings because of COVID-19. And there is not a single provision in any law which requires us to seek permission in order to hold internal party events like the one that we planned. It was not a public rally. It was an indoor public event, which is not regulated by law, which did not require any notification to the police. And they are now using COVID-19 as an excuse to crack down on CHADEMA, to crack down on our meetings at a time when they are holding meetings on a daily basis all over the country. And that starts from the president herself all the way down to the junior officers at the local levels. So CCM, the ruling party, and the government are free to hold meetings as they wish. The opposition, CHADEMA in particular, cannot because of non-existent COVID-19 restrictions. It's nonsense.
All right, we've run out of time, so we're going to have to leave the conversation there. Thanks so much to our guests, Oriem Nieko, Aikande Kwayu, and Tundu Lisu.